I honestly never thought I'd be standing here, looking at the woman I intended to marry as she told me she couldn't be with me because of something I literally cannot change about my physical DNA. How would you feel if the person you supported through their darkest times, the person you loved unconditionally, suddenly decided that 5 inches of height was more important than 3 years of shared history and a soul-deep connection? Was I wrong for thinking our love was bigger than a measurement on a wall? Or is she just as shallow as everyone now says she is? Tell me honestly if you would have stayed or if you would have done exactly what I did next, because I'm still processing the absolute insanity of this entire situation. It all started back in college where I met Sarah. To give you some context, I've always been on the shorter side, standing at exactly 5'5". I've dealt with the jokes and the short king comments my whole life, but I never let it get to me because I had confidence and a drive that most guys much taller than me lacked. Sarah, on the other hand, was 5'8", a literal head taller than me in heels, but she always told me she loved how secure I was. We were the it couple on campus. I was heading for a high-paying career in software engineering, and she was an aspiring influencer and model. I worked 2 jobs while finishing my degree just so I could take her to the best restaurants and make sure she never felt like she was missing out on the finer things. I was her rock when her parents went through a messy divorce, and I was the one who stayed up until 4 a.m. helping her edit her portfolios. I thought we were building a life together, a real partnership based on mutual respect and genuine affection. We spent our weekends dreaming of a future where we'd travel the world. And I promised her that no matter how big her dreams were, I'd be the one to help her reach them. I worked myself to the bone, often surviving on 4 hours of sleep, just to ensure that when we graduated, she'd have a head start. I never saw my height as a barrier to being a provider or a protector, and for a long time, she made me feel like it didn't matter to her either. We would walk hand in hand through the quad, and even though I could feel the occasional stare or hear a muffled giggle from a group of guys, I didn't care. I had the most beautiful girl on my arm, and I thought she had my back. I remember our first anniversary so clearly. I saved up for months to buy her a designer bag she'd been eyeing. When I gave it to her, she told me I was the biggest man she ever knew. Those words used to mean everything to me. I helped her with her graduation thesis. I proofread every single essay she wrote, and I even took a lower-grade internship for a semester just so I could be closer to her and drive her to her modeling gigs. I was her chauffeur, her editor, her bank, and her therapist. I did it all gladly because I thought I was investing in our shared future. After graduation, things really took off for me. I landed a senior role at a major tech firm with a 6-figure starting salary. I was doing well, and I used that success to make Sarah's life easier. I paid for our upscale apartment in the city, I covered our vacations to Bali and Greece, and I even invested in her brand, buying her the high-end cameras and lighting she needed to grow her social media presence. She was happy, or at least I thought she was. But as her following grew, I started noticing a subtle shift in her behavior. She started hanging out with a new crowd, other creators, who were obsessed with aesthetics and the look of their partners. Every time we went to an event together, I'd see her checking the photos she took of us, her face twisting in a slight grimace before she'd apply filters or crop the photos so our height difference wasn't as obvious. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just the pressure of her job, but the comments started shortly after. She'd say things like, "Maybe you should try those insoles, babe, they're really trending right now." Or "I saw this guy today who was 6'4", and his suit looks so different on him." It stung, but I loved her, so I ignored the red flags. I even remember one specific night where she asked me to stand on a curb while we took a photo just so she could caption it "perfect height match." I felt like a prop in her curated life, rather than her partner. She began pressuring me to wear bulky sneakers, and would get annoyed if I wanted to wear flat loafers. She started following aesthetic couple accounts where the guy was always at least a foot taller than the girl. And she would show me the videos, sighing wistfully about how proportional they looked. It was a slow poison, dripping into our relationship day by day, eroding the foundation of everything we had built. I started noticing that she stopped tagging me in her main feed posts. I was relegated to her stories, which disappeared after 24 hours, while her permanent grid was filled with solo shots or photos with other tall, male creators she collaborated with. When I asked her about it, She'd give me some corporate-sounding excuse about brand identity and target demographics. I felt like a dirty little secret she was hiding from her fans. I spent thousands on her birthday, her Christmas gifts, and even her mother's medical bills when she got sick. I was the one who flew her family out for holidays and made sure they stayed in 5-star hotels. I thought I was proving my worth through my actions and my loyalty. But to Sarah, worth was measured in inches and camera angles. I started feeling an invisible wall growing between us. She'd spend hours on her phone, scrolling through the comments on her pictures. If someone mentioned me or asked who the short guy was, she'd delete the comment immediately rather than defending me. It was a humiliating experience to be the one paying for the very lifestyle that was making her ashamed of me. She began suggesting that I shouldn't come to certain industry parties because it's all about the tall, model look there, and you might feel uncomfortable. I wasn't the one who was uncomfortable, she was. The breaking point came during her 25th birthday party. I had planned the entire thing, spent over $5,000 on a private rooftop venue, and invited all of her friends. I was wearing a custom-tailored suit, feeling like $1,000,000 because I knew how much this meant to her. Throughout the night, I overheard her talking to a group of her influencer friends. One of them, a tall, vacuous guy named Chad, made a loud comment about how cute it was that Sarah brought her little brother to the party. Instead of defending me, Sarah laughed. She actually laughed and said, "I know, right? It's a bit of a struggle for the photos, but he's got a great heart and a great bank account." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Later that night, when we got home, I confronted her. I told her how much that hurt. She didn't apologize. Instead, she looked at me with cold, detached eyes and said, "Look, I'm being honest. My brand is about high fashion and the dream life. Having a boyfriend who is shorter than me is literally hurting my engagement. People in the comments are making fun of us, and it's embarrassing. I need someone who makes me look good, not someone I have to crouch down for in every reel." She went on to explain that several brands had allegedly turned her down for couple campaigns because the visual dynamic was off. She told me that her aesthetic required a certain level of verticality that I simply couldn't provide. It was the most clinical, cold-hearted rejection I had ever experienced. It wasn't about our love, our history, or our compatibility. It was about pixels on a screen and the opinions of strangers who didn't even know our names. I stood there in our beautiful apartment, the one I had furnished with every luxury she ever asked for, and realized I was nothing more than an ATM with a height defect in her eyes. I asked her if she even loved me anymore. She paused, looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror, and said, "I love what you did for me, but I can't grow with you." The irony of that statement nearly made me lose my mind. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her if the last 3 years meant nothing compared to a few TikTok comments. She told me she wanted a break, to figure out what she wanted. 2 days later, I saw her posted on Instagram with that same guy, Chad, from the party. The caption read, "Finally found someone I can look up to." She dumped me via text message right after that post went live, saying she couldn't see a future with a man who lacked presence. I was devastated, but then I got angry. I realized I had been funding the very lifestyle that allowed her to look down on me. I realized that the lease for our apartment was in my name. The car she drove was a gift I was still paying off, and the equipment she used to build her brand was mine. I sat in my office for hours, staring at the wall, replaying every moment she had made me feel small. I thought about the thousands of dollars I had poured into her career, the nights I spent comforting her when her engagement was low, and the way I had prioritized her happiness over my own dignity. She didn't just dump me, she tried to erase me. She deleted every single photo of us from her feed within an hour of the breakup, as if I had never existed. She was already filming "Get Ready With Me" videos in the apartment I paid for, acting like she was a self-made queen. She even had the nerve to post a video about upgrading her life and leaving behind things that no longer serve her purpose. The disrespect was astronomical. I was the thing that no longer served her purpose? Me, the man who had been her entire support system when she was nothing? So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let her keep the life you built for her just to be the bigger person? Or would you have reclaimed every single ounce of your dignity? I didn't yell, and I didn't send a single angry text back. Instead, I went into business mode. I called my lawyer first thing Monday morning. Since we weren't married, everything I had purchased and put in my name was legally mine. I had a moving crew at the apartment by noon on Tuesday while she was out on a brand shoot with Chad. I cleared out everything. I took the furniture, the 75-inch TV, the high-end espresso machine, and most importantly, all of her studio equipment. The cameras, the lights, the computers, everything I had paid for. I even took the designer rugs and the curtains. I wanted the place to look like a hollow shell. Exactly how she had made me feel. I didn't stop there. I called the dealership and had her car towed back to the lot since the payments were coming out of my account. I moved all my stuff into a new, even better penthouse that I had quietly looked at weeks prior when I was planning to propose to her. I left her with nothing but her clothes in a pile on the floor, and a copy of the lease termination notice. I had already contacted the landlord and paid the fee to break the lease early, effective immediately. When she walked through that door, she wouldn't just find an empty apartment. She'd find a legal notice telling her she had 24 hours to vacate the premises before the locks were changed. I also went through all the shared accounts. I removed her as an authorized user on my credit cards. I changed the passwords to the high-speed internet she used for her uploads, and I canceled the insurance policies on her expensive jewelry that I had gifted her. I was thorough. I was methodical. I wasn't doing this to be a villain. I was doing this because I realized that Sarah didn't love me. She loved the life I provided. And if I wasn't tall enough for her life, then she wasn't entitled to the heights I had reached. When she got home that evening, my phone started blowing up. She was screaming, crying, and accusing me of being petty and abusive. She tried to claim that because I gave them as gifts, they were hers, but I had kept every single receipt and specifically written property of my name on the insurance forms for the high-ticket items. My lawyer had already sent her a cease and desist regarding the equipment. She tried to go live on Instagram to blast me, but she didn't have her professional setup anymore, and the lighting in the empty apartment was terrible. Her phone was about to die, because I had deactivated the family data plan we were on. The irony was delicious. She was trying to play the victim to her followers, but without the high-end production value I provided, she just looked like a frantic girl in an empty room. She tried to call Chad to come rescue her, but here's the kicker. Chad didn't have a car. He lived in a tiny shared apartment and was basically a clout chaser, who only wanted Sarah because he thought she was wealthy. When he realized she was now homeless and penniless, he suddenly became too busy to help her move. He didn't even show up to help her carry her clothes to a taxi. For the next week, she had to stay at a cheap motel because Chad, the 6'4" dream guy, apparently didn't have room for her in his life once the perks were gone. I watched from afar as she posted desperate stories trying to sell her designer handbags just to cover her daily expenses. She tried to reach out to our mutual friends, but I had already told them the truth. I showed them the texts where she admitted she was leaving me because of my height and how she mocked my bank account. Most of them were disgusted. They remembered how I had treated her, and how I had supported everyone in our circle. One by one, they stopped answering her calls. Within a month, Sarah's brand started to crumble. Her followers noticed the drop in quality, and without the flashy lifestyle I provided, her engagement plummeted. She tried to film content in the motel bathroom, but the dream life aesthetic was gone. She looked tired, stressed, and dare I say it, ordinary. She even had the audacity to send me a 12-page email detailing how her mental health was suffering and how I was obligated to help her because of our history. She actually wrote that I was punishing her for having a preference. I didn't even finish reading it before hitting delete. I blocked her on every platform. I blocked her mother, her sister, and her friends who tried to mediate. I was done being the nice guy who gets stepped on. I eventually heard through the grapevine that she had to move back in with her mother in a small town 3 states away. She's working a regular 9 to 5 now, and her social media accounts have been set to private. Chad disappeared the moment he realized there were no more free trips to the Maldives in her future. As for me, I'm doing better than ever. I took all the money I used to spend on her and invested it back into my own company. I'm currently dating a woman who is a brilliant surgeon. She's 5'9", and she loves wearing heels when we go out. She told me on our first date that she loved my confidence, and that the most attractive thing about a man is his ability to stand tall in his own skin, regardless of his physical height. We laugh about the height requirement, nonsense, because we're too busy building a real life together. I realized that Sarah didn't want a partner. She wanted a pedestal. And when she realized she couldn't use me to stand higher, she tried to cut me down. But you can't cut down someone who has already built their own mountain. Looking back, being dumped for being too short was the best thing that ever happened to me. It stripped away a person who never truly loved me and allowed me to see my own worth beyond my bank account or my physical stature. It taught me that real presence isn't about how tall you are, but about the strength of your character and how you handle people who try to diminish you. If someone is willing to throw away a 3-year relationship over an aesthetic preference, they never deserved you in the first place. You shouldn't have to grow taller to be respected. You just need to find someone whose vision isn't clouded by vanity. The world will always try to put you in a box based on things you can't control, but you have total control over how you react and who you allow in your space. Don't ever let someone make you feel small just because they have a narrow perspective. I learned that true height is measured from the neck up. It's in your mind, your intelligence, and your resilience. I am more of a man at 5'5" than Chad will ever be at 6'4", because I know how to build, how to provide, and how to respect the people around me. Sarah is still out there somewhere, I'm sure, looking for her next aesthetic accessory, but I hope she realizes one day that a tall man won't fix a short soul. Like this video if you were on my side and think she got exactly what she deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this where the underdog, or the short king, finally comes out on top. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'd love to hear if you think I went too far or if the revenge was justified. Did I take too much back, or was it only fair since she treated our love like a business transaction? I'll see you all in the next story.